Ah, there you go.
Yay!
Fabulous.
We're live. Oh my gosh. Look, there's already Sarah and Lisa. And so we're just going to get started. Feel free to ask us questions. But I wanted to introduce Andreanna. She is the most beautiful lady ever. I'm super, super excited to have her here today. And she's going to be sharing about all her magic. About soul origins and so Adriana, just introduce yourself and share what's your story? How'd you get here?
Yeah, okay. So hi everyone. And it started probably about 12 years ago. And initially not really looking specifically at soul origins, but just wanting to know more, more about life, more about energy. I actually had quite a bad riding accident, and there was a part of me that felt that I knew something was going to happen, and I kind of ignored that sense and I ignored that intuition. And after having the riding accident, I just felt this overwhelming sort of desire to understand more and dig deeper into the kind of layers and levels of consciousness and energy. So I started with the horses by doing and learning animal communication and energy healing, and then just kind of got a bit obsessed and wanted to know more and more and more and more. And initially that started on quite a personal level, as in wanting to understand about, past lives. And I had and went to have past life regressions with a few different people, Reiki teachers and mediums. So I had different experiences depending on who I went to see. And then there was a lady who did a talk at one of my Reiki shares, and she specialized in life between life regressions, which is learning about, you not in a body, or you might be in a body, you might have some kind of physical form, but not really. So that then started touching on us as a non-physical entity. And I always found that was something I hadn't even heard of. Like I didn't even know that existed. So again, that sort of perked my interest, and I thought, well, yeah, what do we do when if we're not on Earth, or if we're not experiencing Earth-based lifetimes? What does that mean? So I found someone who did life between life regressions and went to have one, and then just kind of kept digging away and trying to work almost backwards, although time isn't technically linear. But for me, that's I guess the process that you can describe it as, is working out what had led to this point, what had led to this lifetime, what decisions had I made on another level that I wasn't aware of. Because that always, I think, made me think there could be circumstances happening in my life that I either feel frustrated about, but I've probably chosen them for myself on some other layer or level of consciousness. I've probably sat there and gone,
We
yeah, I'll
love
do this, or I'll experience this, and I can't remember. And that's really frustrating, because there's probably, my higher self or my soul consciousness that's completely aware of these decisions that I'm not aware of. And so then I started learning how to actually tap into those memories and how to make more kind of live conscious decisions today in the moment, with my soul energy intact, if you like, and kind of interacting in a way that isn't stagnant. Because I think people often think of it as a bit of a stagnant energy, as in we make all these decisions perhaps with our soul, or our soul makes all these decisions, and then we just kind of almost like act like a puppet in our own lives with our soul and our guides leading us. And that's not really the way that our life needs to unfold. We can be really empowered and interactive with how we're working with our soul and feeding back and learning more and more as we go on. So it's just become, I guess, deeper and deeper over the years. And it's also changed because, I think originally about maybe 7 years ago, I started doing soul readings for people, where I would kind of almost tune into their soul and give them all the information on their soul. And then I stopped doing that because I found that didn't really empower them in the process.
Hmm.
So it's really great information for them, but they still felt quite disconnected from that energy. It didn't really feel like their own. So I changed how I worked with it, and then encouraged more of I can help you connect to that part of yourself, but I need you to really feel that, and I need you to experience your own memories. Otherwise, I'm doing a disservice to you and to your soul, because I'm not helping you to make that bridge. between the two.
Right. That makes sense. So how did you got started doing the soul energy readings, and then now you've broken off, and now what is kind of your exploration? Where are you at right now with that whole arena?
With that whole process, yeah. So one of the things that I've been not really playing with makes it sound lighthearted, and I'm quite serious about it. But one of the things that I've been exploring is, how to help people be more connected in that process. So because I've been able to make a really deep and powerful connection with my own soul, right, one of the things that I do is connective sessions where people can piggyback almost on the energy of me and my soul and that bridge that we've made. So if they haven't got their bridge, they can almost sort of piggyback off the energy of the bridge I've created to help them to connect to their soul and then bring in whatever information or energy is relevant. But I'm doing a lot of work on the middle bits as well, and that's something I think that I hadn't really thought about, all the stuff that gets in the way of connection. I hadn't really thought about, even though I'd probably worked on it myself and had done loads of different things, theta healing, and I love stuff by Brené Brown, and there's stuff that I'd read and done to work on my own middle stuff, my own middle ground, because it's really important that we feel connected to that part of us. But for a lot of people, I think they're working on insecurity issues and maybe a bit of like unworthiness. And so if you tell them they're amazing and they've existed for thousands of years and done all these incredible things, they find it really hard to accept that about themselves. And so that has had to become part of the process as well, this like accepting of their own kind of soul and their own energy, because we've kind of been a bit blindsided in this sort of existence. And even now, I think a lot of people promote people kind of not really understanding about their soul. We're sold this concept of your soul's here just to be human, so we don't really need to know about like what it's done before or what that bit of us means, because they're here just to be us. But that's definitely not the experience of my soul, and I have to help my soul navigate Earth and be here and be present as much as then my soul's had to help me to navigate not being on Earth and not just being human, and you have to change a lot of stuff that you have in your head and a lot of your thoughts and beliefs, because now I see myself as a universal being. I don't just see myself as a human being, or I don't just see my life as this kind of small insular thing. I see it as part of this much bigger picture, and that can take time and like asking yourself a lot of very deep questions about the choices you make in life and why are you making those choices, and is it coming from your most empowered space. And I still think, as much as we are getting more freedom, I think we kind of forget sometimes that there's still a lot of history, there's a lot of genetic stuff, there's a lot of DNA passover, there's a lot of energetic things we take on, a lot of ancestral stuff, that we have to break through those things, and we have to learn to tune into different things to really free ourselves and enable ourselves. So I've been looking a lot more at the things in the middle as well as the other stuff, because I found there was just this big gap where people were like, right, that's my soul and this is me, and they were not being able to fill the kind of gap. They weren't able to understand, and sometimes it takes a lot of healing. I've done a lot of healing, and it's an ongoing process. Like, you think you've kicked something, or you think you've done something, and then it comes back to you in another way. It's shown to you in another way. So, and I've tuned into stuff and untuned in, and kind of it's like I learned Reiki, and I still love it, and I think it's a great thing that people can do. But I've also then developed my own unique healing. So I think it's great to kind of branch out and to find that uniqueness in everything that we do. So I'm still working with that, that middle ground. And I've been asking people, what stops them from being brilliant? Like, what stops them? But I
Right.
think part of the problem has been people not asking the questions or not asking the right questions. They haven't thought to kind of go, what's my soul's name, if it has a name, or maybe its name is more like a musical note, or they're not all human names. What has that part of me experienced? What can that bring to me now? And I think people haven't asked those questions, so they haven't even begun the process of our brains and minds then going and trying to find that information, because they've just thought, like, I just don't need to know, or they've not thought of those questions to ask in the first place. So I think the first step is like asking those questions, and addressing themselves then as more than, more than just human, more than just this lifetime. So it's a very personal process, but one that can be shared in the sense of, I've done that work extensively with myself, so I understand about some of those processes, and I think that can help people not to be kind of floundering around and not understanding, or not sometimes keep persevering, because it took me a long time to be able to connect like with my soul consciousness fully, and to then make that a really strong connection that I could just have either permanently or call on whenever I need it. Soul consciousness can be huge, and depending on everybody's soul consciousness is different, but mine is really, really expansive. So I don't want to be connected into that all the time, because my human body struggles with that level of connection. You have to train your body to be able to host that kind of energy in a healthy way, because it's
right. For those you interested, Andreanna's energy drawing that I did for a little while ago, so it's beautiful. So I loved that you talk about the difference between human consciousness and soul consciousness, and I think what you're saying is that there's this opportunity right now with the energy and everything that's going on for us to awaken. And I was just listening to the 4th book of Conversations with God with Neil Donald Walsh, and that whole thing is that invitation to awaken. And would you say that it's awakening to our soul's consciousness, and that expansivity of our human brains are sort of up leveling in the opportunity to use more than 6% of it, and actually then use more of this capacity that we have, and that then is that next step of being able to connect to our soul's energy versus a human consciousness.
Yeah, and to learn, because I think that the problem that we've got is, if you look at a lot of the information and advice that's out there, we're still just trying to be human beings, and actually doing soul level connection and soul level work is a whole different ball game, and we're not even really understanding. I meet a lot of healers or a lot of psychics who are not super well. And I think one of the reasons is that we haven't learned enough about what it takes our human body, our physical body, to host that type of energy, to connect to that type of energy. I remember years ago, I asked a nutritionist, I think I was on a flower remedy course, and I was sort of saying to her, because we were obviously doing energy work, and I said, I get quite hungry when I'm doing energy work. And I said, so for a person who's, and I don't like to use the word normal, but for someone who's doing, say, like a normal 9-to-5 job, which doesn't involve interacting with people on a healing level, or doesn't necessarily interact, or you're not necessarily going to ever like higher levels of consciousness, we know roughly that person might need this many calories, this kind of nutritional context, this much magnesium, or whatever it might be. And I said to her, but do we need more? Do we need more nutrition, or do we need more of what do we need more of? And she was like, oh, that's a really good question. And I hadn't actually thought about that. I've just been kind of thinking and directing people as, human beings. And I'm like, yeah, but we're not. That's the whole point. We're trying to be more, but we're not thinking about what that means as far as, how can we embrace that in a healthy way? Because I went really deep into my soul work at one stage, and I think I kind of assumed that would just take care of my body, just be like, I'll be vibrant and amazing. And I actually ended up with quite low energy, because my physical body was like, what, you know, what is this? I've got no template to understanding what this energy is. And because I've lived in more than one kind of existence, I've had physical bodies in other existences. And so downloading, processing that information, I think my body found quite confusing. Right. Injuries in other lifetimes were coming through in this lifetime, even though they weren't strictly humanoid bodies. You know, I was bringing those frequencies in. And so I had to kind of step back for a bit and go, I've got to let my body catch up, but also I've got to understand about how we can do this work in the best way and in keeping healthy. So yeah, it's definitely about us fully embracing and living as our souls and our solar energy, but understanding that changes who we are. And we've got to be like really intuitive about you know, what our bodies need and how we can enhance that. I think one of the issues that possibly happens is there's so many different pockets of people awakening and connecting that you are healthier if you're working or connecting with other people who are sharing like a similar vibrational frequency. So say if you had 10 people who were really, really soul connected, interacting on a regular basis, you would be much, much, much more healthy than you are not, because you're set sort of there as a single unit. You're the one who has to kind of keep trying to keep your energy in that space, and then you're interacting with foggy energy or not so great energy, and you've got to go back and then try and kind of do that again. So it helps if you're interacting with people who are at least working with some of the higher levels of consciousness, because even as a human level consciousness, we have a higher self, a higher consciousness that isn't necessarily soul consciousness, but it's interacting. It might be interacting with different people. That could be, you know, especially in our dream state, we can go off and we can interact with other people. But even in our waking state, we can be having these kind of different conversations and different things happening. And then you just kind of keep connecting universal consciousness, soul consciousness. Everybody will have their own kind of levels and programming to what they can, how far that can go. I'm lucky that I have, well, it's probably not luck really, but I'm able to connect at a high level. So I've never met someone whose soul I can't read, but I've met people who are not allowed to read my energy because it's not that their level of consciousness, even at a soul connection level, they perhaps haven't had as many experiences, and so it wouldn't be right for them to read everything about my soul's energy. It just wouldn't be right for their experience. But there's very few people who have made that bridge and that connection, because part of it is we have to remember. We have to remember things we've done, other realities, ourselves. There's many, many different things. I know some souls choose to be non-physical primarily. My soul has quite enjoyed being physical and has had quite a few physical incarnations, which is a bit of a blessing and a curse, because I've mentioned that I know I've got injuries, or I know I've got things in this life that is memories of other things that I'm still working on clearing. I've met people who haven't incarnated much. They find it harder than kind of connecting with a physical form, but they might not have loads of carryover. So everyone's got their own kind of stuff that they have to like remember, resolve and heal. But I still think there's a massive lack of understanding about how much we can interact with our soul and how much we can do. And yeah, I think this time, definitely for me and definitely for my soul, is all about that interaction and us being able to be our soul in this reality. Because how powerful is that for, you know, thousands of years of knowledge to be activated at this level, for us to be able to talk from that knowledge base whilst in a physical form. So we don't have to wait till we die to have a life review or to go like, where are we at? How's it going? We can do that now. We can do that as regularly as that makes sense for us to do. We can keep checking in, and, you know, and I've had conversations with, because you can either be completely connected and working as one unit, but I also sometimes will talk to my soul almost as if like they're a guide, because sometimes I find that helpful to say, look, you know, what do you need to understand about this existence, for this existence to be better for both of us? What do you need to understand? They don't really understand about money. So I'll put that out there right now. So I have to be like, look, this is what I need, and then keep that in line with the things that I still have chosen to do for myself on a soul level. So that's a really difficult balance. That one right there is a really difficult balance. It's very hard to keep in your kind of heart and soul center whilst you're also like existing and having to exist in this physical realm. But it's part of it. But our souls don't know much about that. They might not have incarnated since a time when there wasn't money, or when the money system was different, and everything that was here, and playing out at that time was totally different. So we have to kind of help them to be more active and more activated and more knowledgeable about this existence. So that's a really important thing for us not to like assume. And when I get guides coming through, I don't just have like stagnant guides. I've worked with over 500 guides. A lot of guides come through and visit me because they find me quite fascinating, because I'm working actively with my soul. They want to tell me things. But when they come through, I never make an assumption of what their knowledge is. I'm always like, what do you know? Where are you from? And what do you need from me? I don't give everyone full access. That wouldn't be healthy. But I'm like, what do you need from me? What do I need to either show you? What do I need to give you permission for you to see, so that we can have this conversation from a place where we both know each other? Because guides don't know everything. They just don't. We have to help them, and we have to help ourselves. So it's working on a completely different level of consciousness. And yeah, they can be very separate, or they can be very integrated if we help them to be.
So do you think then that, what would you consider the benefits of actually connecting to your soul? You said that, perhaps maybe the soul isn't adapt at, the money, but they surely have the ability to manifest. They understand what that means. And so what do you think is that contrast between, is it the human experience and that soul consciousness, that just being able to communicate effectively? I mean, of course, the world about manifesting.
I think manifesting what we need to manifest is fine, as long as it doesn't deviate away from our soul agreements too much, or that we're, because you can take a concept and you can go, yeah, I'm totally running with this. But if you've only downloaded 10% of the information, are you executing that in a way that really is in line with your soul agreement? And I think that's where it gets tricky, and that's where it also gets more empowering the more that you know. Because when I first started doing soul work, I was like, well, I'll just do soul readings, and if other people are struggling to make that connection, I'll just give them the information. And that wasn't the right thing to do, or it wasn't the best course of action. So over time, I realised that, made different decisions. And also, I suppose, I got older on a human level, but I also then had more and more memories on a soul level. So I understood a bit more about, okay, there's a different way to be doing a similar thing, but actually executing it in a completely different way. So I think that's a benefit, but also we unlock our own potential, because working with that soul-based energy, they've experienced things healing on other planets that are phenomenal and is way beyond what we're doing here on Earth. So we unlock our own potential. We've got to decode that, and decoding that is part of the process. Because they're working with us in this time now. We're lucky in many respects. We've got a lot of help happening on Earth. We've got a lot of beings here that are willing to help us. We just have to learn how to connect in with them. So there definitely are benefits, but I think it's not necessarily an easy thing equally. It still can be a very gritty, very difficult experience, because you have to question, like, why, the decisions you make. Then you're like, okay, is this me fully aligned? Is this desire? There's nothing wrong with human desires at all. And I'm not saying there is, but I chose to make decisions from a space that was more like universal. And so you then have to kind of, it does make you question who you are, your beliefs, your life circumstances. And that's not a bad thing, but it's not an easy thing, because then you have to be really diligent with yourself. Like, where are these decisions coming from? And are they coming from a place of empowerment? Are they coming from like my highest source, or are they coming from a need? Are they coming from maybe me feeling insecure and needing that as a piece of security or as a boost? and so you have to kind of change that mindset, but equally you have the potential to heal yourself and to work in a new and dynamic way, like that is more unlimited and has loads more potential than I think if we just stay within our human consciousness and our human reality. So there are benefits, but it can definitely be work. Definitely.
As healers, we all know that, right?
Yeah.
So, tell us about the difference between Earth-related work and planetary work, and the soul contracts.
Well, there's loads of different souls here now, more diverse than there ever has been. But there's also, you'll get some souls that were created with earth energy and who primarily concentrate on helping Earth. But you are getting a lot of souls and a lot more diversity, so they could be coming from not only this universe but other universes, and the choice is ours, and that's a very important thing to note. I want it. I kind of like responsibility. I'm a bit strange like that. So
well, you're a bad soul, so.
And so, consciousness is clever. It's not a stagnant thing. So at the point where it became obvious I was going to be obsessive and diligent and do everything I could to discover my soul, I drew to me a soul that was to be one of the first fully awakened here. And that's not a coincidence. That was due to the decisions I made and that match being the best match possible. And so it depends on like the person and some of their desires to the soul that they draw to them. So there's some people who love Earth, and I love Earth. But you equally get people who are like, I can't wait to go home. I don't want to stay on Earth. I don't feel very connected to its energy. I'm not really vibing here. And often you can find some of the origins of that is because they're a soul who perhaps isn't coming here to stay for a great length of time. They might just be coming here to lift the energy and boost the energy, and just to lend a helping hand, but not necessarily to stay for a great length of time and do many cycles here. They are just coming to lift things and then go and go back. You've got other souls who've been incarnating here for a very, very long time. They feel very kind of dedicated and connected to the Earth, and they want to stay here. They want to, and they're not all Earth origin souls. They are souls from other places that are like, this planet has a lot of potential that's being wasted and being like blocked by a lot of negative energy. Seems to be like a power struggle on Earth where you've got different forces and different energies wanting to have different outcomes. So it's, so that's challenging because they're trying to kind of keep us from that connection. But yeah, and it can be, there's beings here who are helping very specifically with nature, whether it be water, the Earth. Others are here helping specifically more with people and soul work, and it's so diverse. I mean, there's some guides who are here who help lost souls, because sometimes souls become so deeply entrenched in the human consciousness, they think they're human, they forget that they're a soul. And so some guides are helping purely to help them to not get stuck in the frequencies of the human consciousness. So it's a tricky business. It's a tricky business for us, and it's also a really tricky business for souls. Like, it's not easy. It's not easy for them. But I think because a lot of the time people are kind of like, da, 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 and they're not necessarily going, oh, there's this whole other, not only chapter, but chapters and chapters of me that I'm not even thinking about, let alone like going, hello, what's that? And feeling into it. And, I've remembered existences on other planets and beings that I've interacted with very similar to Earth, actually, which surprised me. I don't know why. I don't know what I thought it would be, but it's not what most people believe it to be. It isn't. And there's some planets that are there's other planets that are gritty and difficult. The hardest thing about Earth is that we forget more than on any other planet. That's the big challenge here, is there seems to be this layer of fog where it's just, we forget massive parts of us. And as I say, even, I've known a lot of spiritual teachers, and And they're like, you know, my soul's here to be me and to be human, and that's great. And then I'm like, oh, have you asked it? Have you had that conversation? And they're like, oh, no. I'm like, it would be really good for you to ask that question and to see if that's the case, because you're probably going to get a no. And then you're going to open up a whole new world of possibility and potential that, you know, rather than be a human being if you want to be a human being. And I've got nothing against human beings. But you could be a universal being. You could be so much more than that, and so much more interconnected to the destiny of other planets and creation itself. Why wouldn't you want to do that? That's awesome.
Right. Become aware of how you're creating or how you're co-creating, and use the different levels of consciousness to be able to then be an active participant. Yeah. And you know, that's why we call it awake, right? It's like, you can either be sleepwalking, or you can actually be engaged and really fully participate on not just a human level, but on a soul level and a love, right? And I think that's part of the experience right now. So I know that you have some ideas of how would you, I wanted to actually address Nicole's here, Lisa was here, and Nicole says you are sharing my experience. I have changed my entire diet, and kids who are sensitive to the diets of today. She says a lot of times up-leveling, what we call the title of up-leveling, yes, it makes my body sore and aching, lots of salt baths. So how else, or other tips and tricks of how somebody would be empowered to connect to their soul energy, and any ideas that
yeah, I mean, I did a few things, like, and I like having quite a big toolbox, if you like.
Right.
You know, we have one for our human life. Why not have one for our energy work? So, I mean, I worked with crystals, but I would make like crystal elixirs. I would douse though, and I would check very specifically what energy I needed at that specific time. Even good energy in the wrong quantities or the wrong amount is not good. Like, you have to get precise with yourself and be like, what exactly do I need right now? You know, I got a herb called ashwagandha, which is amazing for balancing thyroid and adrenal, because I knew that my thyroid and adrenal were like just burnt out. And so,
a very common topic for for healers. Do you have any idea why? I think it's the fight or flight. You know, it seems like there's a resistance on a human level to actually embrace that spiritual level.
Yeah, because we don't know it's part of us, right? So we're there like, what's this thing like attacking me or not? You know, I don't think we always acknowledge that it's part of us.
Right.
And the herb that I took was ashwagandha, and it was amazing. It was amazing. And I did get a thyroid blend of herbs as well from someone. But the ashwagandha, when I held it, I was like, oh, I need this. You know, it was so powerful that it was like, my body really needs this. But I know for me, I'm an empath. I'm highly sensitive. I didn't always know what was mine and what wasn't mine. And I had this habit of taking on everyone's energy. So I was just burning away for everyone, you know. I'm just there like, I'll do it all, guys. I'll just do it all. For all of you.
A lot of us find that way, and we have to learn boundaries, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But also, yeah, sometimes, you know, I've read really good books by, I don't think his work's as extensive as it needs to be, but I think it was groundbreaking for its time, and that's Dr. Michael Newton. And when he's doing his, like, he does life between life regressions, and basically he would be talking to them in a state of regression where he would be connecting to their soul, talking about how they're connecting with the host. And they would describe how some people they could connect to really well and others not so well, and that there was this conversation that would happen between the soul and sometimes it would be literally when the baby was in the womb, and they're making that initial connection, like, you know, I think it'd be good for us to work with one another. And sometimes the human baby would be like, oh, I don't know who you are, I'm not sure, you know, like, And so there isn't always this natural and instant kind of like, yeah, let's be best friends forever and work together. And, you know, and there's definitely resistance. There is definitely resistance, but also because, you know, shamanism was banned, but, you know, people were burnt. And so we were systematically taught not to make you know, there would be bad things happen to you if you made connections with not even just our soul, just anything that's kind of like spiritual. Right. So we actually trained our bodies to reject that energy. And now we're having to go, this is safe. This is okay. And that's really important. Like, I actually talk to my body from a higher state of consciousness. And part of that is going, you are okay. This is safe. We are going to be fine. And that's really important, that you help your body and you ease your body into this experience, because it feels weird to our bodies. You know, it feels weird to our cells. It's like, because it feels like an alien is trying to like take us over. Especially if your soul's not from Earth. It's like, what's this energy? Like, I've got no reference for this energy. What's going on? Because it's so divided and disconnected at the moment. So it's so important that we're really gentle with our bodies and gentle with ourselves. And it's like, you know, it's okay. We're going to be okay. And I think I didn't do enough of that gentling because I didn't realize how.
Us don't. We don't have an instruction manual. It's like being a parent. You know, you just doing what you can do. We're trying to get the best tools, and I think obviously right now there's definitely lots of downloads from highly evolved beings to help us progress through this change and you know, really evolving the humans. I think there was a story that you know, whether it resonates or not, but the was it the Octarian or Pleiades? They actually are 250,000 years in the future, and what they've done is time lapse, come back to Earth, because Earth made a decision that the humans would become cyborgs. And so they're actually coming back in time, because then 250,000 years later, because the knot in the universe actually affected their planet and their experience of themselves. And so they're here and along with other beings to help us not do that, to become cyborgs. And it's so interesting if you watch the behind the scenes news on YouTube there's crazy stuff happening with technology, and robots are being created just, I mean, it's exponentially technology. In 9 years, apparently, our laptops are going to be equivalent to our brain power. There's an incredible, you know, advance in technology right now where you know, people are putting chips in their hands and all these other things. So it's definitely a reality. And how do we, you know, not all fall into that, you know, human cyborg kind of, you know, all attached to their phones now, and there's just like this, you know, mass consciousness kind of programming that happening with technology. How do we leverage it so that you know, technology becomes an incredible tool? So, like, conversations like these can then empower those who are tapped in and turned on and actually aware of the fact that we don't want to go that direction. We want to go.
Yeah. Well, this is it. I think we're relying on other things to tell us stuff or to be empowered, and it's like I've kind of got my own viewpoint on Atlantis, because that's not exactly the same, but that in part was when people have memories, and memories are a bit different, because I don't feel Atlantis did exist on Earth. You know, I've got a kind of different theory about that. But I would regress people who would remember a terrible end to Atlantis, you know, the golden age, and then they started doing weird experiments and kind of using the power to do these weird experiments rather than to kind of tune into their own higher power. It's like we're not activating ourselves. We're relying on things outside of ourselves all the time.
Right.
You know, and it's like, that's the problem. And that's what, you know, drives me potty, really, because it's like, for me, the soul is your highest source of power. It always will be your highest source of power. Right. But people don't always want to do that, so they want to go outside of themselves and they want to, very quickly feel powerful, and they're looking for power in all the wrong places. And it's interesting because my brother's really, really, really into technology. And yeah, he's very clever, he's extremely clever technology wise. And I'm the opposite. Like, it just doesn't interest me unless it can enhance, connecting with people in other countries. That's great. That's really, really good. But other than that, I don't want it to take over my life. I don't want to feel more connected to my screen than I do a person. And we're losing those connective qualities. We're losing that ability to connect. And so we're not trying to enhance our own powers. We're not trying to people have completely got the power to learn how to communicate through their mind. But we're kind of making technology the new god now, the new version of that.
Right. We pass our phones, but it's incredible. I mean, obviously, this is how you and I connected, because you're in England and my hometown. Of course, I can put on my British accent as well, and here I am in America, in Texas. So I think it's all fascinating. So you actually reached out to me and got a soul drawing, and you resonated with that idea. Tell us about colors and how a soul is born. I'm fascinated how you see that.
Yeah. So normally when both through my own memories, but also through connecting with other points of creation for souls, they're normally created in a cluster, which it feels to me like pure consciousness. That's the way that I can describe it. So it has a certain like intelligence to it. And a cluster can be anything from, it can be a 2, but a 2 is very, very rare, and not always the best connection. Up to like 8 or 9 is the biggest soul cluster, and they're all created for a similar reason. It will be because at that exact moment in time, there was a need for something to balance out the kind of energy. But yeah, anything from 2 to 9 is a creational cluster. They could be your soul family. I know people like the term like soul family as well. But yeah, it was always, I think, because I literally felt that kind of cluster being created. And I've had quite a different journey to a lot of those in my soul cluster, whereas others choose to incarnate quite closely and they choose to stay with their cluster. That hasn't really been my experience for whatever reason. But sometimes that's perfect in itself, because they're experiencing different things, and then at a later stage you can always then reconnect, and your cluster's learnt in all different places in different universes, and then you bring all that knowledge and information together. So yeah, anything from 2 to 9 is a creational cluster, and it can be that you're created for various different reasons. The reasons are not normally super specific, like you are going to go to this planet and do this and do this. That happens as the soul develops, like in the consciousness develops, that then it's like, oh, okay, actually, you start making agreements, and that can be with other souls, that can be with planets, that can be with universes. There's no kind of end to the potential that can have with these like soul level agreements. And color is always, when I connect initially to a guide, I normally feel them as a color. That's the first kind of way that I connect to them. I've always felt the soul color as a core creational color, if you like. And then you'll have like rings of color, which is like your different experiences, and maybe like different energy from different planets. So it's quite a good way to read that energy base, because the color has its own certain like vibration and frequency that tells you a story. Like, when you can feel into that and you can tune into those colors, you can kind of see that you build these almost like rings of color, which you can either look at it and see one color, or you can separate and see all the kind of like rings as well, where it's like literally, oh, I've done this and that's got that color and this color. It's like a tree almost, The more rings, the older you are.
Nicole, she sees that too, so that's great.
Yeah, so that's definitely, I think color is very important for many reasons, because that is, as I say, the way that most guides have chosen to show themselves to me. And then I'm like, oh, and then I can feel what they're about and what makes them. I've never been somebody who, I prefer feeling energy. To be honest, it's not that I'm against hearing it, but you know, if like a guide comes through and they're telling you stuff and you're not feeling into the integrity of their words,
Right.
be
Right.
careful, you know. So color and feel, I think, are really important.
Absolutely. And I'm inviting everybody to ask questions. This is a great opportunity, so feel free. Okay, so Sarah says, how do you know where your soul is from?
You have to remember, like, so I literally didn't have a map, storyboard, nothing, and I come out with things that no one else has ever come out with, and when I repeat them, people are like, "Can I Google it?" I'm like, no, you cannot, because no one knows about it, you know. But that's exciting because, you know, I managed to trace my soul back to its origin, its home. I could, you know, feel it and see it.
Meditation or
Yeah,
process, or did you do Akashic records, or?
I mean, I did, other than having like so I had regressions, which I think helped me to understand the process of tapping into memories, like what it felt like to start tapping into memories. It's different than tapping into the memories that I have of existences on Earth. It's much, 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 much higher. So I would sit for hours and I would tune in and I would go as high as I could go, as high as I could go, as long as I could, and then go do the horses and ground myself and do that sort of thing. So it took tuning in. It took a lot of tuning in and a lot of time. So it's like meditation, but equally you don't have to close your eyes. I used to sit there with a pendulum and I would allow it to kind of swing. I have a working motion for that, and that would tell me when I was getting tired as well, because it would sort of, the pendulum would start getting slower and I'd be like, right, that's probably as much as I can do for today. So it's training. You have to train your mind. You have to train your body to be able to make those connections. So it's like a ladder. I meditate as well, but I quite like active tuning in sessions. So I'd also work with loads of guides. I'd always be very careful about who they were. I want to make that clear. Like it's not just about letting anything come through. I'd be very clear about verifying they're good, because they all resonate at different frequencies. So that taught me how to be able to deal with all these different frequencies and expand my own kind of ability. But yeah, you have to just keep going back and back. And sometimes when I've been doing connective sessions with people, we've gone back to some memories, but we haven't got to that origins yet, you know. So they're still working back, if you like, or they're still working on that. But it's definitely a process. It's something that took me quite a lot of diligence and hard work to sort of master, to be able to do that. But it's absolutely possible for anybody. Like, it really is absolutely, because it's your energy trail. So I just kept working back and working through my memories. So yeah, meditation, regressions, if you can find anyone. It's always good if you've done some of that work before you go. There are people that do life between life regressions. I will say, when I had my life between life regression, that's not where I found out my soul origin. It's not. I had to do more work and more digging and more tuning in to be able to find it. But I got there.
Love it. Nicole, do you have any questions? Let us know. What, if anything else, you wanted to share? If there was a message that you've learned through this experience, what would it be that you wanted to tell humanity?
Okay, yeah. Be active. I think the thing is, people often kind of get into a bit of a, like, I don't want to say like a victimhood mentality, but I've heard people go, you know, why isn't it easier? Or why are these things happening to me? Whereas I found doing the soul connection put me in charge of what's happening. And I would say to my guides, like, that's not working for me. That's just not working for me. That doesn't feel good. Let's do something different. Let's, you know, and that changes it from tell me what to do, you know, tell me what to do. tell me what's going on, having a reading and them telling you what's going to happen or whatever else. I was suddenly working with my own direct source of power and information. And that just suddenly was like, oh, I can do anything. And I can choose anything. And I've made soul agreements, but we can change them. We can change them up a bit now, live in this time. So it's to be active in doing that. And don't kind of wait for the path to get clear or for it to get easier. As I say, I spent hours tuning in. It wasn't something that was gifted to me at all. I totally got that for myself. I was literally like, I want the most awesome soul ever. So I want to be very active in my soul work. I want to think about it every day. Every day I'm thinking about it. And there's days I'm on the yard with the horses, and it's not that I haven't got a human existence, but I'm always mindful of okay, what decisions are going to take me closer to working on those things, to really having those soul steps, to be being very active in my soul's journey. And it changes what you can access, the information and the knowledge that you can have at your fingertips. People can ask you questions you don't know that you know the answers to, and right. You're drawing on that and you're like, oh, yeah, I know that. So be active and don't be aggressive, because it's different being active to being aggressive, because you've got to let your body be with the process. That's why you've got this balance of you're working with your soul, but then you're also you've got to keep that good with your human consciousness as well, because you've got to make sure your body is healthy. You've got to make sure, and it's a whole health thing, because I did a lot of mindfulness. I did a lot of reprogramming my subconscious and helping to make, your mind is the tool that helps you connect to your soul. So right. I did a lot of work on my mind, extensive work on my mind, extensive work on my emotions, to help clear that path, and to understand, what it was that I was kind of doing. So, that doesn't just help you connect. Mindful work doesn't just help you connect with your soul. That just helps you. Right. It's good due diligence to have your mind in a good place and to have a very healthy mental attitude. So it's it's being able to kind of go, yeah, I'm working on myself. It really is genuinely working on yourself on every level, but that's how it should be. And I know we're learning. Don't forget, you can make mistakes. The more mistakes you make, actually, the more you're progressing.
Exactly. Fall down and get back up. Exactly.
You have to be good with making mistakes, because it happens. It's a learning process, and we're the front line. We're the people who are going to tell other people how to make their lives easier. If you're here now choosing to be awake, you've chosen to be on the front line doing this kind of and kind of trailblazing to make it easier for right. other souls, to make it easier for other people who are going through this journey. So yeah, it's going to be messy, and it is messy, but it's kind of a beautiful, messy process as well. It's exciting.
Than others, right?
Yeah. And I think you have to kind of we have this obsession with perfection sometimes, and that's just not, you just can't do that to yourself, and you've got to be vulnerable, and you've got to be gritty and messy, and still feel like you're awesome.
Well, and I think that's, in summary, that would be the main point of somebody connecting with their soul, because the human experience right now is getting a little heated. A lot of my friends are gone through divorce or financial problems, and so there's definitely things that are heating up in the earthly experience, and knowing how to connect to us on a soul level gives you, if you realize that you're more than just a body, if you're looking at your life from being just a body experience, that's a very limited experience. And it's actually very scary, because obviously you're in constant angst about whether it exists or not. And so, the whole being able to connect to your expansiveness,
Yeah.
that you are more than a body. And even just that whole concept of course, is really being birthed right now. It's been birthed for a long time, but more exponentially today in these days, as the frequencies of the planet change. And I think it's really, really comforting to know and have that connection, that there is more of you and understanding more of it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the more you seek, the more you will get. There's the more that you go out there and want to know about yourself, the more that you're going to get, and you will amaze yourself. And then you have to then accept that and to find the bits that are stopping you from accepting that. But it's like when people say to me, "Oh, this is all there is." I'm like, then that is what you will experience. But why would you wish that on yourself?
Right.
Why would that be what you give yourself? Because, scientifically we know so much about consciousness. It's not even that it's stuff that people are just making up. We know about this stuff on a whole other level. We've proved that consciousness and thought affects matter. So if you think, even just from a human level, if you think enough positive thoughts, good stuff's going to happen. But then if you power your machine up so that you're like, your source of connection is closer to the source of all creation, like how much more powerful is that going to be when then you're bringing that frequency down, you're bringing that kind of energy through? What becomes possible? Anything. And that's incredible. And why wouldn't you want to give yourself that, or get that for yourself? And it's available to anybody who's willing to go on that journey with themselves, ask the questions, and be open about the answers, because you might find that you're far more than you could ever imagine. So just kind of be ready for it.
I love it. Well, I am so, so grateful for your time and your attention and your incredible wisdom. And I know that you have done your work, you've done your homework, and your life is expanded and I'm sure way more joyful than it could have been. So I'm so happy to have been able to spend time with you and have all our audience enjoy.
Yeah, I hope it's been useful and just embrace that journey for themselves, because it's their journey, like it's no one else's. There's nothing more unique in your life than your soul journey and your soul, so it's just allow that for yourself, and it's yours. It's completely yours and you deserve it.
Exactly. And Nicole says, what's the best way to contact for future conversations?
Well, anyone's welcome to join. I've obviously got my little group online where I try and share as much as I can, soul-based, energy-based, because I am a healer as well. So that's Psychic Heart Cafe. Because I try and do loads and loads of just teaching and connective stuff on there. Because we really are the future, and we really are the future, and it's going to take those kind of connections and us all keep going. We've got to keep each other going,
Absolutely.
Keep the energy good for us all, because it can be hard, but the more you share, the good and the bad, I've been honest and said I went too deep into my soul work really, and my body suffered for it. And then I was like, oh, I need to keep my body good as well, and we forget that sometimes. It's got to be that duality of journey. But yeah, people are willing, if people are able to contact me and join, and I will share as much as I can with people. I try and share as much as I can with people there, and just kind of keep going.
Excellent. Well, once again, we'll post the, I think your Psychic Cafe, see if I can find it. Beautiful group. And
it's quite, it's small, but I think it works like that because I suppose it's a specific kind of energy, so it's not for everyone, but it's a nice little safe corner in the universe, I think.
Right. I'll share it here with everybody. Psychic Heart Cafe, and you can sit and you can. Or
Yeah.
Andreanna has, guests there, and she's doing her magic. So
Yeah, it's a nice way. It's a nice way to, I do talk about a lot about the like energy healing as well, because it's all the step. There's loads of different ways to approach being connected to your soul, and it's going to be different for everybody. But I definitely loved doing my energy work to do that, like my healing and the work I did with my horses. That was awesome for me. That was definitely, that was my horses have been very important in my journey, actually. So definitely embrace not only human souls, but animal souls.
Well, I'm sure they'll learn tons of stuff over there in your beautiful group. I love being there. And once again, thank you so much for being here with us today.
You're welcome, and thanks to the people joining. It's been lovely to share some space with everybody.
Okay, well, I put the link in the comments there, and okay, well, for everybody who's watching, and Andreanna, thank you.
You're welcome. Lovely to meet you all. Thanks, guys.
I'll sing.